Hello everyone, welcome to this session on Azure Data Engineer Certification. Today in this session, we are going to discuss the latest DP 203 Azure Data Engineer Certification, which is basically going to be launched in February 2021. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we move on, guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Intellipaat channel and also click on that bell icon to never miss out on any updates from us. Also, guys, if you need the content that we are going to use in this session, please comment down your email ID and we will be sending you over the content that we are going to make use of in this PPT. Now let's go ahead and get started with the agenda to understand what all we'll be covering in this session. So guys, we're going to start this session by first understanding why should you actually go ahead and become a data engineer in 2021, and then move on to discuss who is a data engineer exactly. Once we're done with that, we'll move on and understand what are the different kind of job descriptions and how you can make a career in data engineering, especially when you are basically aiming to become an Azure data engineer. After that, I'm going to tell you guys, in order to be successful in your career, how you can basically go ahead and crack the Azure Data Engineer certification by discussing its detail, and then also the things that you need to learn in order to crack the certification. Finally, we are going to discuss how you can get started with all the things that we are going to discuss in this session and become a certified data engineer. Alright guys, so this is the agenda for this session. I hope it's clear to you. Now let's go ahead and start off with the first topic, which is why you should actually go ahead and become a data engineer. Alright guys, so you guys must have heard about data scientists or data analysts, right? Now the core of their job is to basically work on data. Now data engineers are people who basically avail this data which has to be worked on to data scientists or data analysts, right? So if you think about it, any company which basically has to have data scientists or data analysts will need a data engineer in their team, right? Talking about it, when you if you talk about the data engineer profile, according to a tech job report of 2020, every year there's a 50% increase in the number of job openings for a data engineer. Now you must have heard about that data scientist is probably the next go-to job of the 21st century, but understand guys that without data engineering there is no data science, right? And that is why the numbers speak for themselves, that data engineering job is basically one of the most fastest growing job of 2020, right? Even in 2021 there is going to be a huge jump in the number of job openings. Reason being, a lot of things, a lot of businesses have basically went online in the past 1 year because of the pandemic, right? Now let's go ahead and also understand the average salary of a data engineer. So in the US, the average salary of a data engineer is $95,000 per annum. Now remember guys, this is basically a average salary, which basically means there can be people who are above this salary and there can be people who are even below this salary. But later in this session, I'm also going to talk about some of the job descriptions which can talk to you or which can tell you the kind of salaries that you can earn once you start applying for a data engineer profile. And in India, the salary is around 6.5 LPA, and the same goes for the Indian jobs as well, that the salary can be higher than this average package as well, a lot higher actually, and can be lower than this package as well. Moving forward, now that you understand that why data engineering can be the next big thing in the coming job world, let's go ahead and understand who is a data engineer exactly and what does he do. Alright, guys. So, data engineers are basically not only responsible for giving the data to the data scientists or the data analysts, they basically have a generalist role wherein they basically have to do most of the jobs that probably a data scientist or a data analyst also has to do. So, the first job that they have to basically understand is they will get the requirements from the data scientist that this is the kind of data that they need, and now they will have to figure out on the internet that how they can find that data. Once they have found that data, they will have to create a process on how that data can now be brought to their own platform and make it basically ready for the data scientist to use. right? So you can say that they have a job of managing and organizing the data that basically will be looked upon by the data scientist and basically help him to find out trends and other things which can help a company to improve its current business, right? Talking or pinpointing the exact roles that a data engineer basically has is basically divided into three types of data engineers, right? There are people who are generalist data engineers, that are the people who basically not only does the data engineer work, but also their roles and responsibilities coincide with what a data scientist and a data analyst also does, right? For example, people who are data engineers, they will also do the job of a data scientist, they will also do the job of a data analyst, and these are usually people who are at very senior profiles, and they basically have to wear multiple hats, right? For example, let's say you introduce a new data team in a company. Now that data team is still in a very nascent stage, right? So probably the person who has to set up that team initially will have to do all the work which is required to basically show the stakeholders that this team can actually work, right? And once it becomes successful, then he basically hires more people who can do more specific tasks, which are basically tasks that he was doing previously, right? So that's what a generalist data engineer is. Then you have people who are basically pipeline centric data engineers, that is, people who basically have the job of setting up how to bring with data which is basically online, or scraping off data from the web, converting it or transforming it into a useful manner or in a useful state, and then giving it to data scientists so that he can consume the data. So this pipeline which is created from the web to the point where data scientists can use it is basically called a pipeline for data, right? And a guy who basically looks after this pipeline, or the data engineer who basically looks only after this pipeline, is called the pipeline centric data engineer. Then the third kind of data engineer is database centric data engineer. Now some companies, they basically say we have all the data in our databases. Now you check this data and then you figure out what can be used by a data scientist to make their job better, or through which these guys are actually able to do their job. So in those cases, you need to have the skills or expertise in the database which the company is using, and hence for him the job becomes database centric, out of which he will have to create a pipeline, right? So these are the three kind of data engineers which are out there, and if we basically take a crux out of it and define the jobs or responsibilities of a data engineer, he is basically responsible for creating architectures which are related to data pipelines. He is the guy who will be aligning the architecture with the business requirements. He will be the guy who will be responsible for data acquisition. He will be the guy who will be developing processes through which he will be creating the data pipeline. He will be making use of a lot of programming language and tools to accomplish this, and he will be also the guy who will basically be responsible to further enhance the data reliability, efficiency, and quality, right? So guys, these are the roles of a data engineer, and after this I think you guys have now an idea about what a data engineer will do in his day-to-day life, right? Now let's move on and talk about what are the career opportunities which are there in becoming a data engineer. So let's go forward and understand that. All right guys, so thinking again about what a data engineer does, he basically has the job of maintaining the data pipeline and the operations around it, which could be management, monitoring, security, and privacy as well, right? Now when you basically define a job role like that, you have many job descriptions which are floating in the market, right? Now how can you identify which job description you have to apply to? Let's go ahead and understand that, right? So talking about the job descriptions which basically exist in the market, guys, this is on the right hand side, you will see a job description which is an entry level job description, and then here is a job description which is mid to senior level job description, right? So let's go ahead and understand both of them. So if you see the first job description, which is Azure Data Engineer, the salary is around 9 lakhs per annum to 14 lakhs per annum, and these skills which are mentioned over here are all the skills which are expected in the Azure Data Engineer Certification. Now, what are the skills which are expected? You are expected to know NoSQL or Cosmos database skills. You're expected to know data lake, data factory, data warehouse, strong experience in building pipelines in Azure Data Factory with Azure Data Lake, strong experience in maintaining and optimizing Azure SQL data warehouse, and experience in analyzing, creating data models using various analysis service. So this line basically is a coinciding lines with a data analyst or a data scientist, because even they are responsible for creating data models, right? But at the same time, if you look at these skill sets are all the skill sets which you will basically know after you basically study for or clear the Azure Data Engineer certification, right? So once you're done with the certification, once you're done with the skill sets which are just there in the certification, you can easily go ahead and apply for a job which lies in this salary range, which is for Azure Data Engineer. Now, talking about a mid to senior level data engineer profile, you can see that over here, apart from these skill sets, a lot of other things are mentioned here as well. For example, you should know Java, jQuery, SQL, or Scala, or any preferred programming language, right? So over here, what we recommend our learners is you should go ahead and learn Python, because although they have mentioned only these programming languages, but companies are very much flexible if the target profile has any programming experience but a strong one in any of the programming languages, right? Next thing that they expect you to know is advanced skills using one or more scripting languages, for example, Python, Bash, etc. So this Python thing will basically serve a dual purpose, that is of a scripting language and a programming language as well. The next thing that they expect you to know is the ETL process using big data technologies such as Spark, Kafka, Hadoop, and others. And then data visualization experience using Python. Again, Python is here. R, Tableau, or Power BI is a plus, right? So this again is an important skill to have, and this again coincides with what a data analyst does, right? Because he is also responsible for data visualization to some extent. Then you have solid understanding and experience implementing cloud data platform, and here they have not only mentioned one, but they have mentioned two cloud technologies, which are AWS and Microsoft Azure, which are basically one of the major players in the market with respect to cloud. Okay, so if you are a guy who wants to start off, you can start off with this profile, and after basically having experience in this profile, these are the skill sets: big data, AWS. These are the skill sets that if you gain, you can actually apply for this particular senior profile as well. Okay, so guys, these are the job descriptions, a few job descriptions which are related to the data engineer profile. Now let me go ahead and map all these skills in the Azure Data Engineer Certification, and this will basically shed a light on how important this certification is in validating your skill sets when you basically apply for a data engineering role. Alright, guys, now let's understand the things that you need to know about this certification. So, guys, currently, that is in January 2021, if you are applying for Azure Data Engineer Associate, there are two exams that you have to give. One is implementing an Azure data solution, and the next exam is design an Azure data solution. Clearing both these exams will give you the Azure Data Engineer Associate certification, and these two exams basically have the code DP200 and DP201, right? But there is a good news that now this exam is going to retire in February, and from February 23 2021, you guys can give just one exam to clear the data engineer certification, and this exam is DP203. So what they have done is they have clubbed both those exams, and they have now included its syllabus in just one exam, and they're asking questions from it, right? So earlier you had to pay for two exams, prepare for two exams and give them, and then only you could get the certification. But now, just by passing one exam, you can clear out the data engineer certification, right? But for people who are already probably preparing for DP 200 or 201, you guys can still give this exam till June 30th. that is when it is officially retiring. But for people who have to start on their data engineering journey, it's better that you basically just prepare for DP 203, which is the new exam. Now, as part of the new exam, the skill sets have been updated, right? So basically, these are the distribution of topics of how they will be covering in the exam the questions, right? First of all, you will be asked most of the questions on design and implement data storage. This is going to have 40 to 45% weightage. After this, you will have design and develop data processing, 25 to 30%, design and implement data security, which is 10 to 15%, and monitor and optimize data storage and data processing, which is again 10 to 15%. Now, if you just read this, probably it does not give you a good idea about what all are the things that you have to learn in order to clear this exam, right? But don't worry, today I'm going to tell you everything about the certification, so just hang on for a minute, right? So like I said earlier, you now just have to give this DP203 exam to get the Microsoft Certified Associate Data Engineering Certification. Okay, so just one exam and now you will get the certification for it. Now let's go ahead and understand how do you basically decipher the things to know that we discussed on this slide, the skills measured on this slide. How can we measure it, or how can we basically expand it to figure out the different things that we have to learn, right? So things to learn for DP203 certification, let's go ahead and figure out. So first of all, you will have to talk about the different Azure storage which are out there. You will have to learn all about these. You will have to learn the relational databases options which are there in Azure. You will have to learn about NoSQL. You will have to learn about big data services in Azure. You also will have to learn about Data Factory, Azure Functions, Stream Analytics, IoT Hub, Event Hubs, Redis Cache, and Azure Search. So these are the services which are basically required for you to understand in order to clear the certification. And this also coincides with the job description that we had a look at earlier, right? All the services which are mentioned there are basically a part of what you have to learn in order to crack this certification. Now, apart from this, what we also recommend is going through the open source services of Hadoop, such as Spark, Hive, and the Hadoop itself, right? Now, let's move on, guys, and now let's talk about how you guys can get started in clearing this exam, right? So, we have mentioned a lot of things that you have to learn, but how exactly should you go forward and start learning these things? Let's go ahead and clear that out. So, first of all, guys, what you can do, or what we can do for you, is you can basically refer a lot of blogs that we have written on Azure Data Factory, or we frequently update videos on YouTube as well, such as this video, right, which has info about the engineering certification. We frequently put out more videos for such topics. You can go through them and basically get a jump start into how you can prepare it, right? Now my recommendation to you would be, plan out your hours. If you're working, plan out your hours. After every working shift of yours, you should at least spend 3 to 4 hours every day for the next 2 3 months in order to clear this certification exam. Otherwise, if you don't invest this much amount of time, guys, it is going to be a little difficult to crack the exam, because there are a lot of things to learn, and especially if you are not from a data engineering domain, it's going to be a little difficult, because you will have to read documentations, you will have to do hands on, right? You will get stuck, I know that, but getting stuck is the most beautiful part of learning anything, because that is when you start the actual research and learn about things, right? So spend 2 to 3 hours every day, either after your work shift or before your work shift, to basically learn this technology, right? And now for those people who feel that they do not have time, or they do not want to invest time in researching, and they want someone to help them out in getting this exam cleared, guys, we at Intellipaat also offer a course of Azure Data Factory, right, which will basically help you in clearing the Azure Data Factory or Azure Data Engineering certification, right? So more on this, my colleague is joining the call and he will be explaining you more about it. But if you need a helping hand and you need someone, or you need to be taught by someone who's already cleared this exam and is a data engineer in the industry, this is the right course for you, right? So now the my business manager is going to join and he's going to explain you more things about how you can basically clear this particular exam. Now, before he joins, guys, I have a quick quiz for you so that you guys can basically check how much you have understood in this session. So, let's go ahead and understand that quiz. Alright, guys. So, the first question is, data engineer can be responsible for what of the following things? Creating data pipelines, data acquisition, finding trends, or all of the above. So, think about it and give your answer in the comment box below. Next question is, which exam can you give before June 30th, 2021 for Azure Data Engineering Certification? So the options are DP200, DP201, DP203, or all of the above, right? So again, this is a good question. Think about it and then answer it in the comment box below. So with that, guys, I would like to take a leave from you all. Now I will be handing over the session to the sales representative for the further explanation about the course. All right. So thank you guys for all joining in. Have a great day ahead and goodbye.